My name is Matt Blois. You're listening to Medically Necessary, a podcast about the healthcare supply chain. On the show, I talk with experts, business leaders, and researchers about how we can get drugs, devices, and medical supplies to healthcare providers and patients. This podcast is brought to you by Ryder, the only fully integrated logistics and transportation provider in the industry. Ryder's solutions cover the entire supply chain, including warehousing, transportation logistics, e-commerce fulfillment, and last mile. Discover how Ryder can make you ever better at ryder.com. So the coronavirus pandemic put an enormous strain on the healthcare supply chain, causing demand to surge for things like nasal swabs or personal protective equipment. And after that wake-up call, a lot of logistics companies in the healthcare industry are hoping that more data or real-time tracking will allow them to respond faster to potential problems in the future, or just have more flexibility to come up with solutions. So today I'm talking with Matt Elenjickal, the founder and CEO of FourKite's, which provides real-time product tracking in several industries. Over the last year, FourKite's has been working with the medical distributor Cardinal Health to build more visibility into their supply chain, and they recently announced a major expansion to that partnership. So we'll be talking about why real-time tracking could be useful in healthcare and how the pandemic has changed the way companies in the industry view the technology. Matt, thanks for joining me on the show today. So to start out, can you briefly describe what the partnership with Cardinal Health is? What is it, and how did it evolve into what it is today?
Awesome, great. Thanks for having me, Matt. So FourKite's based out of Chicago. We are providing real-time visibility across a variety of industries. Starting with food and beverage, retail, manufacturing, distribution, paper and pulp, so on and so on. So when you think about life science and pharma, it's pretty complex ecosystem, if you will, right? There's a lot of manufacturers shipping products to distributors, and then they're in turn shipping those products to hospitals, pharmacies, and so on and so on. So when you think about the timeliness of data and when to expect all these products, it's very important to get them at the right place at the right time, and that's where visibility comes into picture. So we reached out to Cardinal Health in the middle of COVID crisis about providing a free visibility across the supply chain, starting with ocean shipments. So that's how the relationship started. So we provided that service, I would say, for 2 to 3 months. And that resulted in them starting an RFP process to really get visibility across the supply chain and to drive what they call a cognitive supply chain, right? So they wanted to really build a cognitive supply chain based on real-time data. And that RFP process went on for several months. Given the experience they had with FourKite's, they selected us. And we had to commit to a lot of new things. So when you look at the pharma supply chain, they use courier mode extensively, right? Especially for providing products to the final mile hospitals and pharmacies. So we had to develop a brand new mode of tracking courier within FourKite's for Cardinal Health. So we committed to doing that as part of the partnership. We signed the deal sometime, I would say, November, December timeframe, and we went live earlier this year across all the different modes. So it's a great partnership. They are one of our largest customers in terms of the volume, tens of millions of shipments going through the platform, tracking across multiple modes, truckload, LTL, ocean, rail, all over the world. So,
okay, that totally makes sense. So I wanted to know, it sounds like, you with the service that you guys provide, there's a lot of granularity. You can see really detailed where products are, when they're going to arrive, what all this data that's super detailed. So I'm wondering, why would I want that? Like, what business decision does that allow me to make that I wouldn't be able to make, just knowing it's going to show up on this date?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start at a high level. When I am moving billions and billions of worth of products through my supply chain, it's very important for me to know where products are at any given time. And that doesn't mean, when products are in transit. It also means when products are sitting in a yard or a warehouse or a retail store, right? So if you don't have that granular pieces of information as to where the inventory is sitting in a given time, then you're building safety stock, right? That might impact your, your operating costs, right? All those things. So having that view of exactly where products are any given time, that'll help you operate a very, very, lean supply chain. So that is number one. Second thing is, in the pharma and life science industry, these are mission critical products that you're shipping. So think about shipping, vaccines to a pharmacy that has to be in a temperature control, right, transportation, if you will. Now, with FourKite's, we are not only tracking the location, but we are also tracking the condition of the freight. So if the transport was made and if the temperature went out of the tolerance for a certain time, we can detect that. So we are tracking condition while the goods are in transit, and we can proactively catch exceptions even before the vaccine reaches the destination. So think of somebody waiting at the other end for the vaccine, and if they come to know that the vaccine is not good after it arrives there, then you're talking, right, more lead time in shipping new batches there, so we can proactively catch all those exceptions. And second thing is, when you're shipping critical products like, let's say, surgical equipments and stuff like that, you don't know how many products you need. So you're not keeping a safety stock, right? Every hospital of every parts that you need. So it's very important to have that view on where products are available, where can I source it from, and what time should I source it, what time should I place an order. So it's all just in time operations that we're talking about. And if you don't have the visibility on where the products are at any given time, then it's just creating massive strains in the supply chain. That's why visibility is super important, right? It's not about dots on a map. It is about taking that information and really solving business problems. And in pharma and life science, it's a high stakes game.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, and it's I think that totally makes sense about what you said. Having a good sense of what your inventory is at all these different points, whether it's at a warehouse, kind of sitting in a stock, and knowing how much you have, that lets you decide whether you need to order more or whether you need to or whether you can cut back. But then I think you mentioned in pharma, we're dealing with a lot of temperature controlled things, and so those you have to keep track of that no matter what. I'm also interested. I think you've mentioned pharma a couple of times, but obviously in healthcare, not every product is a pharmaceutical product. How much do you guys do? Within healthcare, how much of your healthcare business is pharmaceutical products, and how much of it is like other products, scalpels, masks, any things that a product or a hospital or a healthcare provider might need?
Yeah, it's all over the place. When you think about a company like Cardinal Health, because it's that relationship is public,
right?
They are distributing to almost 90% of the hospitals in the country. And it is not just drugs and pharmaceutical products. It is everything that you mentioned, right? Including face mask and 95 masks and everything else. So we are tracking everything. We have some other public, success stories like 3M. So we are tracking all the N95 masks 3M is producing. Ecolab is another one of our customers where we're tracking all the hand, sanitizers and everything else. So we have a significant presence, not only just with Cardinal Health, but everything that is related to, pharma and life science.
Yeah. Okay, that's good context. So it's really you guys do it all, and that example of having 3M as a customer is definitely they do a lot of things that not pharmaceutical products that healthcare providers need. So I've been reading a little bit about what you guys do, and I've read a lot about how you guys use artificial intelligence and machine learning to provide insights to your customers and to help them make decisions. So I'm wondering, why, I feel like those are terms you hear a lot, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and they're sort of like buzzwords like, ooh, look at, we've got a fancy service for you, but why is that actually helpful? What can machine learning or artificial intelligence do with the data that you guys have that I couldn't do with just some, fancy formulas in an Excel spreadsheet?
Absolutely. So, you're right. AI, ML, data science, it is I don't know if you can have any podcast these days without, throwing those buzzwords out there, right? When I think about it, the foundational element, right, that you need to make those things happen, it is data. If you don't have data, you don't have data science. If you don't have data science, you don't have AI, ML, nothing, right? So we are at a very fortunate place where we are collecting massive amount of data from private sources. And I'm not talking about, going through Facebook feeds and Twitter and everything else and collecting data. So this is data that only we have access to. So for example, when you think about Cardinal Health, we are tracking 70 million shipments every year. We are tracking those shipments every 15 minutes. right? We are getting a GPS ping from the trucks and steamship lines every 15 minutes. So think about the amount of data that we are collecting. Not only that, we are geofencing every location, and we know exactly when the truck enters the geofence and exits the geofence. We are deriving information like how long the truck is sitting at every location. So there's a lot of data that we are collecting because of the fact that we are tracking all the shipments from the platform. So now, how do you take all this data and create some insights, right, for our customers? A good example, when you think about supply chain optimization, the transit time that is built into the platforms, it is pretty much static, right, across the industry. From Chicago to Denver, it will say, it takes 3 days. So that's how you plan all your shipments. But because of the data that we have at a granular level, right, every 15 minutes, we know what's the transit time on a Tuesday morning, February versus transit time, on a summertime, right? Because Chicago traffic might be worse during the winter. So it might take 3 days and 3 days and 23 hours in March versus 2 days and 32 hours in December or, August or September, right? So that kind of data is available because we are looking at historic patterns, and that is what is going into data science algorithms. So we will say, okay, based on the patterns that we have seen, this is the ETA of the truck in March versus the ETA of the truck in June. So that is one example. Second example is the waiting times or dwell times at locations. So again, it's very static the way industry is looking at it. Cardinal Health location in Toledo, Ohio, the wait time is 3 hours, right? But that's not the case. When you look at the pattern by day of week and time of day, the wait time varies by day of week and time of day. At 8 a.m. in the morning, it might be 2 hours. At 10 a.m., it might be 3 hours. So imagine incorporating those data into planning engines and also communicating that to the carriers. What is the optimal time to arrive at a location so your driver doesn't have to wait there? So those are some of the real life examples of having enormous amount of data and using that data to predict insights or derive insights and passing it on to our customers.
Yeah. Well, and I actually liked, you started by saying, you guys just have a massive amount of data, and there's almost two problems. Like, you can have a problem of not having enough data, where you can't glean any insights if you don't have enough data. But you can also have a problem if you have too much data and just millions and millions and billions of data points, but you don't have a plan for how to get some information out of that. That doesn't really help you either. And so it sounds like what you guys are doing is getting, you have all this data. Like you said, the GPS points are pinging every 15 minutes. You've got the geofences. The spreadsheet is enormous. And so you really need, it sounds like those AI tools are really going in there and able to take the 10 million data points and tell you something about it, rather than just admiring how big your data set is and feeling good about how many data points you have.
Exactly. And it's a natural progression. You cannot lead with data science. Like I said, you have to collect the data first. So start collecting the data using visibility, solve real life business, pain points, and then apply data science to really, make an impact. So that's the way we look at it.
Yeah, I think that totally makes sense. So we started off this conversation, talking about the partnership with Cardinal Health, and it sounded like a lot of the one of the reasons you guys really wanted to start that was because of the coronavirus pandemic, really shaking up the healthcare supply chain. So I'm wondering, just in general, how has the coronavirus pandemic affected what you guys do in the healthcare industry?
Absolutely. So number one, the demand for visibility is, up through the roof, because people finally realized, how messed up supply chains are and how a single disruption can cause, massive upstream and downstream, impacts, right? The bullwhip effect, if you will. So that became very clear during the COVID crisis and also even the recent, Suez Canal crisis, right? So people started, scrambling, for visibility. They want to know exactly where things are, any given time. So that is number one. Number two is the need for collaboration, right? I always talk about supply chain. It's not you cannot run supply chains in a silo. You have to collaborate with your vendors and your customers to really run an efficient supply chain, right? It's not a zero-sum game. So there, and again, you're not 100% always managing your supply chain, right? You have, your vendors managing part of your supply chain. You have customers sending your trucks for customer pickups. So that's why I'm saying it's a team sport, if you will, and people have to play nice. and they had to collaborate by sharing data. And when you think about how to share the data, it was a very cumbersome process, right? Until FourKite's came into picture. So now we have all these players on the same platform, and we are facilitating collaboration in a secure fashion.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And so now I'm wondering, like, you know, what's going to happen next? You know, you said there's demand for real-time visibility has gone through the roof, and people are seeking that out now. And in a lot of cases, they're getting it. And like you said, you're doing this work to sort of connect all of the different sources of information so people can kind of see everywhere. I'm wondering, is that going to last? Because, well, and I'll bring up an example that comes to mind with this. I used to do a lot of reporting on forest fires, and I remember talking to, you know, researchers about forest fires who say, like, yeah, there's a big forest fire. Everyone says, you know what, we got to do something about it. We're going to clear the brush. We're going to, like, get prepared. And then 10 years later, that works for about a couple of years, and then 10 years later, people forget about it. And so I'm wondering, like, do you think that's going to happen with the coronavirus pandemic? Like, are we going to see this, like, demand for visibility spike right now? But do you think that's still going to be the case in the future, or do people get addicted to it?
Yeah. So, you know, visibility was there even before coronavirus. When you think about the FourKite's like back in 2014, what really propelled us was a couple of things. One is Amazon changing the customer experience, right? You order something on Amazon, you know exactly what is happening. That's not the case if you're shipping, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of products in a truck, right? So that wanting that B2C experience in the B2B world, that was, you know, one market force. Second is, you know, the fines and penalties, right? A lot of retailers used to put fines, even now they are enforcing fines and penalties if you don't show up on time. And how do you make sure you show up on time? It is by knowing where your products are at any given time, so you can plan accordingly, right? So there were market forces even before COVID hit that was, you know, that triggered the need for visibility. So the good thing is, this is a network game, right? This is not, again, a company deploying visibility in a silo. To make visibility happen, you have to work with your carriers, you have to work with your customers, you have to work with your vendors. And once you start seeing the benefits of visibility, the number of phone calls going down, right? The wait time at the locations going down, the inventory goes down, the safety stock goes down. Once you start seeing those impacts, like you said, right, it becomes very hard to live without it. So our thesis is this is here to stay. Not only here to stay, this is, you know, here to thrive. And the use cases that you can solve using visibility is going to go up. When we started the company, it was all about where is the truck, right? What is the ETA? Now that's not the question anymore. It is all about what can you do with it, right? How can I manage my dock scheduling better? How can I manage my labor at the store better? So the number of use cases that we are solving using visibility goes up. And so that's what is exciting about it. It's not a point solution, it's a network solution.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Well, and it's so it's part of what I'm hearing you say is that, you know, the coronavirus pandemic, during the pandemic, there was the spike in more visibility, but really, like, there's been more of that demand already, and so it's the coronavirus is just sort of amping all of that up and making it's sort of amping up the same factors that were making people want it from before. So I also wanted to ask you about, I was recently reading an article about you guys in the Wall Street Journal about you just had this big round of fundraising. So I'm just wondering, you know, what is that new round of fundraising going to allow you guys to do, and will it be any different from what you're doing now?
Yeah, absolutely. So when you look at our recent fundraising Series D, it was more than just a traditional fundraising led by a financial investor. We brought in 3 strategic investors into the FourKite's family, Zebra, Qualcomm, and Volvo Group. So you have 3 public companies that put money into FourKite's. Now, when you look at the thesis behind their investment, it was very specific thesis for each of those companies, but they are all, you know, coming together around the need for real-time visibility across the supply chain. So let's take the first one, Zebra, for example. So they are a customer of FourKite's. They are also, you know, working with FourKite's on the yard management side. And when you think about Zebra's business, they have a lot of visibility into what is happening inside the warehouse, right? Because most of the printers and scanners and everything else that is inside the warehouse, it is powered by Zebra. So with Zebra, we are extending the scope of visibility from in transit into the yard and into the warehouse, so we know exactly what is happening inside the four walls of the warehouse. Not only that, Zebra has done some acquisitions recently that is giving them a foothold into the retail store. So the point of sale system, right? And the merchandisers using the scanners for stacking the shelf. So we are getting information on what is happening in the retail store as well through Zebra. So when you think about it, right, you know what is happening in the store, you know what is happening in transit, you know what is happening in the warehouse, in the yard, upstream transportation. You're getting that end-to-end view of supply chain. That is the thesis behind Zebra. When you think about Volvo Trucks, they're the second largest OEM in the world, right? These days, trucks come equipped with a lot of data, right? Not only location, but engine performance, fuel diagnostics, right? A lot of different things. So we are getting unique access to a lot of data through that partnership that is going to make our platform better. And when you think about Qualcomm, they have plans to create new chips that is going to communicate directly to the cloud. They call it chip to cloud strategy, and they are betting on FourKite's to really help them take that to market. So my point here is these strategic investors, they are making a strategic bet on the largest visibility provider in the world to really push the envelope and bring it to the next level, if you will. So that's what is exciting about it.
Great. Well, thanks, Matt, for joining me on the podcast today. If people want to learn more about your company, what's the best way for them to do that?
First of all, thank you for having me. And it's very simple, FourKites.com. You can reach me at matt@FourKites.com, or if you want to reach FourKites in general, info@FourKites.com, or online at FourKites.com.
All right. Love the accessibility. Well, this has been Medically Necessary. Thanks everybody for tuning in, and check back next Thursday for the next episode.